So welcome to myself. This is the very first live stream of the channel. I've been told time and time again that I should do this. And hello, Lori. Nice to see you. Lori, do you hear the sound I'm talking about? Sort of some kind of, it sounds like a train or something like that. I've been told time and time again that live streaming is like one of the greatest parts of the YouTube experience. Oh, good. Thank you, Dennis. And I've been hesitant to do it just because it's hard to get my makeup team here. Elena, wow, great to see you. And you, April, good to see you. I think I saw you earlier in the living room. And so when my hairdresser can't show up in time, I never just really want to go live. But I was able to get them here tonight, so I hope I look okay. So the thing about YouTube live streams is that I can't see you. You can see me 11 seconds after I talk, and I want to make this a time for people to interact, ask questions if they want that. And so what we're probably going to do is from this point on, I'm going to do this every week. Now, we used to do our Dharma talks once a month, and it was quite a rigmarole. We'd have to send out a Zoom link, and then people would write us and say, I didn't get the link, or the link won't open, and then Zoom would cut people out, and they couldn't, they'd have to be let back in. So it was pretty disruptive. Zoom is fine, but just from what I hear, YouTube really makes it easier. And so anyway, so we're going to be doing that a lot. And what we're probably going to do is we're going to combine YouTube with another platform. So if you have a question and you want to ask it, you want to have some conversation, you'll be sent a link where you actually will be on my screen. You won't be on YouTube's screen unless you want to. We can configure it that way too. And that way people would see me talking, and then you would come up and you would be there on screen. But some people don't want that, so it doesn't have to be that way. But that way at least I could see you, and you could ask your questions, your voice could be heard, and we can respond to that. But you know, the only time I really get to teach people who aren't nearby is when we have our retreats. And so when people show up to our retreats, usually I have so much stuff that I'm trying to prepare and to present that people's meditation questions or just their curiosities about the path don't have much time. They want to talk about the practices that we're doing. And we do retreats quite often every month. So it seems like there's just a more important need that I haven't had an opportunity to meet. And I think this is going to solve it. So sometimes these live streams will just be a collection of questions that people have sent to me. And I also have to figure out how to get that to you. It could be on my Substack, which is Jeffrey the Meditator on Substack. You could type in a question on any one of my articles and it'll alert me, and then I can collect those. So sometimes I'll just answer questions, and sometimes I'll prepare something like I did kind of for tonight. So if anybody has a question that you would like addressed, please type it in the comments, and I'll make time for that tonight. I've scheduled an hour for this live stream. I don't know if we're really going to have an hour's worth of conversation in us, but I did just anyway. Looks like there's 20 of you, which is great. So I thought I would start out by talking tonight about the concept of the path, because meditation has never been more popular, but it's also never been less clear. When I started practicing 30 years ago, there wasn't a lot of misconception about meditation. Meditation was something that a person did to begin a transformative process. That's what it was for. And if you found a meditation instructor, you kind of knew that. The mindfulness movement hadn't begun, and the whole law of attraction, manifesting meditations thing hadn't begun. So meditation was just sort of, it's what it was. It was a modern presentation of what had always been the case. And it was in the 90s, in the 80s, and the 70s. We were in the early stages of the traditions of meditation coming into the West. And they were rooting in English-speaking countries and also in France. There had been scholarship in Germany and France early on, but some of the great meditation masters moved to France, like Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche and some people like that. And so there were French translations, there were a lot of English translations of things, and there wasn't a lot of easy reading. So meditation really attracted people who meant business. And the other thing that I noticed back then is there wasn't a notion that you were going to meditate for some reason that you came to meditation with. You were going to meditate for the reasons embedded within meditation. And you knew that meditation was something that you begin now and you continue from now on. You didn't do it it wasn't seen as something where you would kind of have a tune-up. And these days that has replaced the more traditional expectation of meditation. Maybe it will have some benefit, but if it does, it's not going to have the deep benefits of meditation. In order for meditation to be a transformative path, it has to be a consistent long-term thing. The other thing that is going on a lot right now, which is why I want to talk about the path, is that meditation is viewed as a technique, just a technique. Something that you can learn in a weekend, and then you're on your own. And boy, that isn't the truth. That's a hard one to believe, that the technique that we usually get when we start meditation, we get instruction from someone, is that we follow the breath. We just follow the breath, come back when our mind wanders, recenter, and then continue on. What's that going to do? I mean, really, that's going to calm us down a little bit. It's going to calm us down for 20 minutes. And then when we get up off the cushion, it's all gone. It's a technique to relax, I guess, and it probably does relax us for a little bit. And if we need that little bit, then I suppose meditation is probably a good thing for us. But if we relax a lot through meditation, we're going to start encountering things about ourselves that our anxiety kept us from seeing for all those years. So if we relax a lot and we encounter those things, we're no longer going to be relaxed about it. We're going to begin to see the impermanence of each moment. We're going to begin to connect with the texture of what existence is. And it isn't just a good feeling. Life is so much more than what we think it is. And meditation helps us encounter what it actually is. And because meditation can be an introduction to a very provocative experience, it is usually accompanied by a couple of things that have to be put in place deliberately and over time. One thing, of course, is knowledge. Meditation is a technique, it's a method of applying instructions that steer us into well-known milestones of discovery. And these milestones of discovery can be surprising, they can be hard to comprehend. And so usually we have a first level of knowledge that we're wading into the practice of meditation with. And those help us make sense of what can otherwise be a disorienting experience. All the experiences within meditation are astonishing and amazing, but if we're not prepared for them, they can be disorienting. We can think that we're experiencing something that isn't good. It is good, but we have to know that it's good, and we have to know how to interface with it so that the possibility of its goodness becomes available to us. So knowledge is an important part of the path. So also is a community. Until recently, maybe 10 years, 15 years, there was probably no one on the face of the earth who really thought that meditation was something they could just get on their own and practice on their own without having other people in their life who were helping them or practicing alongside them. Meditation has always been something that you do with a community of like-minded people. One of those like-minded people is the person that you learn from. So that can be a teacher. It can be someone who's a little bit ahead of you on the path, but definitely knows what they're doing and knows how to teach. That's probably sufficient. But it also could be someone who's mastered the path, someone who knows it inside and out and can guide you for the long term, 10 years, 20 years. I mean, some of the people that I study with, I'm trying to think, I have at least maybe 2 teachers that I've studied with since the 90s, so a long time. They're a little bit older than me, but not too much older. That's why they're still alive. And then the teachers that I studied with even before then who've passed away, but I had 20 years of being able to ask questions from time to time. And that's really one of the best things in the entire experience, is that you meet other people who are at various stages of the path. At first, everyone you meet is beyond you. Everyone can help you. But after a year or two, you start to connect up with people who are right where you are, and then you see new people coming in, and you begin to feel like this is really a community. It could even be considered a family. And families share things. There's something that binds a family together. They all share the same ancestry. They share the same family memories. They share the same family recipes, the way that they celebrate holidays together. But meditators, what they share a body of knowledge, and they share a method of implementing that knowledge to get experience happening. And the community helps us understand where we are on the path. Every meditator who applies themselves legitimately is going to experience something that completely blows their mind, but it's not going to be the first time that's discovered. It's going to be the first time it's been discovered by us. Every meditator is going to discover something that has already been discovered. Meditation is not a creative act. Your creativity and imagination would be problems on the meditation path. They're not problems in the rest of your life. They're treasures. It's wonderful if you have creativity and imagination, but you don't need those on the meditation path, because you're not trying to see something that your imagination produces. You're trying to see something that your imagination could never produce, because it's not imagined, it's real. Our imagination and our creativity don't direct us in the same manner that meditation does. We don't encounter reality through those faculties. So if we only have those faculties, and if we only rely on our thinking mind, we'll live our entire lifespan without encountering reality. That's a difficult thing for a lot of people when they start reading meditation texts. It almost sounds like meditators think that they have the one true reality or something like that. It can begin to sound like a religion. But, meditators don't necessarily think that they have the one true reality, but they would ask, is there more than one reality? Is reality something that has variations? And their answer would be, no, reality is what it is. It's not three things, just like it isn't really one thing. It's beyond one, two, or three. Reality is reality. And if we want to experience reality, we have to find a way to do so. And the way to do so is to combine method and knowledge along a continuation of effort. And that continuation is called the path. So meditation is a path. It's a journey. A lot of the traditional teachers try to emphasize this to their Western students. Western students often are excited to get knowledge because we are so literate and we're so intelligent and we're so good with bringing knowledge in and seeing the connections and probing the depths. So meditation traditions have so much knowledge that it seems like all we would ever do is read. But there's more than knowledge. There's also method. Now, some of us, we're not so interested in reading. We want to do. We want to do the thing that produces the results. So we want the method, and we just want to figure that out. But teachers will often say the method and the knowledge, those are important, but the real thing that you're getting here is the path. So please take some time, they tell us, to understand the path. If you don't have a path, then you don't have a journey. You just have a thing that you're doing from time to time. But why are you doing it? Where is it taking you? And if you don't know where you're going, you aren't going anywhere. So the path helps you understand where you're going through the methods and the knowledge of the meditation experience. So the path is important, and it doesn't have to take us forever to understand it, but it will take us a little bit of time, and it's worth that time. And so tonight I'm just going to talk about this notion of the path, because it's possible. Hey, John, thanks for showing up. Hope your heart is doing okay. The concept of a path is as old as meditation itself. As we know, meditation seems to have hit history. And history is that period of time between now and all the way back through the written record. That's my understanding of history. Everything that goes back that was documented in writing could have been chiseled into stone, it could have been carved into a wall, whatever, but history is the written record of humanity, or at least it's derived from that. After or before then, we have archaeology. And that I might be wrong about that, but that's what I learned in school. I was an anthropology person, and so I had to learn this. And what I learned is most of the interesting things, most of the really remarkable things that human beings developed took place before history. And because of that, we don't really know much about them, because if there's no archaeological record, then we can only surmise what must have been. So probably one of the most important things that we all did today was use language. I'm using it right now, and you're understanding it. Language is thought to be 70 to 80,000 years old, whereas the human upright animal has its roots back 500,000 years. Some people even put it older than that. We have all the variations of hominids, and at some point, language took off. Wow. That means that there were probably people who didn't pick up language, whereas other people did. And those people who didn't pick it up didn't survive. Language conferred an evolutionary advantage. So language caught on, and we use it, but we never think about it because we don't have any books that suggest when it happened or who did it. Was it Molly Brown? Did Molly Brown create language back in the 19th century? No, probably not. She might have created her own language, but this is prehistorical, and we don't really know when it happened. Meditation is like that. Meditation hits our history line with written documents that were collections of oral tradition about 2,500 years ago. The earliest written things we have are about 2,000 years for the Buddhist meditation stuff, and a little bit older than that for the non-Buddhist or what's called the Hindu stuff. But we know, or at least we think we know, that around 500 BCE, a remarkable set of people, the Buddha being one of them, but not the only one, sort of hit these milestones in meditation that revolutionized all future generations of meditators. And today, 2,500 years later, nothing important has been changed. I mean, the fundamentals of meditation were put in place back then, and no one has really been able to come up with anything that improves it. There have been variations in instruction. There have been ways of categorizing what is known, but the fundamental teachings of meditation, which aren't a dogma, they're not a belief given to us from any kind of a deity or anything. They're just fundamental teachings that haven't really needed any kind of correction or improvement. That tells me that when these teachings were first put in place 2,500 years ago, for our purposes, we'll just talk about Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. There was someone else. What was his name? The founder of Jainism. I always forget his name, and then I look it up after I teach, and I go, oh, yeah. So if anyone knows his name, just type it in there. Otherwise, I'll look it up after the live stream. I'm trying to think of it, who it is now. Well, I don't know. Because this just emerged fully formed 2,500 years ago, what we can probably conclude from that is that it didn't. It didn't emerge 2,500 years ago. It was put into its final form 2,500 years ago. So that suggests to me that it was probably thousands of years old at that point, that it had been an oral instruction tradition that had been circulating through the forests of India, and Siddhartha Gautama connected up with it, and he was kind of the person that tipped it. He was the person who brought everything together. Perhaps he was like an Isaac Newton or maybe a Mozart. He clearly was a powerful person with tremendous intellect and tremendous capacity to meditate. No doubt about that. But what he did was he passed along the instructions that he'd been given, which is our first sign that it predates him. We just don't know for how long. And then he packaged it into an approach that, yes, Mahavira. Mahavira was a contemporary of Shakyamuni, the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. Thank you, April. Mahavira was the head of the Jains, or the founder of the Jains. Also an amazing, amazing tradition of meditation. Of course, not as well known. It's a very strict culture, but we're talking about something that's also 2,500 years old. And Mahavira and Shakyamuni, or that's his handle. The Buddha's handle is Shakyamuni. His name was Gautama, Siddhartha Gautama. I don't know what Mahavira's actual name was. I think it was Rodney Preston. But these are some very ancient names, and they set in motion these incredible human activities that are not, just going to say it this way, they're not religions. They're really not religions. They're developmental capacities that can be unlocked. That's kind of a cliche term these days, but it is almost as if there is a code within our nervous system, which, if it is treated in a certain way and oriented in a certain way, begins to unlock faculties of perception and cognition that are so remarkable that they're called things like enlightenment. And one of the first things that unlocks when you put these in place is you lose fear of death. It doesn't mean that you don't die, but you don't view death as something to be afraid of at all. And, considering that so much of our activity is centered around denying death, and the world that we live in right now seems to be a world that thinks that everyone else will die but ourselves, and that future planning is always a good idea, unlocking that freedom from the fear of death is a big deal. And that's one of the earliest things that happens in the meditation experience. But around this time, 2,500 years ago, there was an understanding that the way one leads their life can bring them to a transcendental experience. That doesn't mean that one goes into another world. That's not what transcendental here means. It means one rises up out of their ordinary confusion and is able to see things differently or more accurately. So right in the middle of our experience, we can sort of unfold another capacity to see. And when we see from that perspective, we're said to have a transcendental experience. What are we transcending? We're transcending our ordinary outlook, our ordinary conceptual understanding, what a lot of people these days will call our dualistic experience. We're going into a non-dual experience. Thank you for the love, whoever's giving it. I just love. And so what I thought I would do, one detail I just want to say, this is just an aside, and live streams are supposed to be kind of spontaneous and not too organized, so I'm going to play along with that. We were in San Francisco several years ago, and we went to it's the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. I don't know what it's called. God, it's amazing, and I highly recommend that anyone who's in San Francisco goes to check it out. But they have collected all kinds of statuary, little figurines from ancient India. And what you find are that at some point around maybe the 1st century BCE, so 2,100 years ago, something like that, the statuary, rather than just being gods and goddesses and like wild creatures or divine, I guess that's what they would be, like sort of godlike depictions of things. Suddenly you start to see the emergence of meditators, just seated figures. And the seated figures, they'll have the little card there, which will say, this is where this is from, this is when we think it was discovered, and this is who it is. And there will be a section with exactly the same figure, only 400 or 500 year span of all these little figurines, and some of them will be Siddhartha Gautama, and some of them will be Mahavira, but it's the same figurine. So the depiction of the original meditation teacher was kind of standardized, and if you are of the Jain tradition and you're a meditator and you want a little figurine to put on your dresser, then you'll have one and you will think of this is the founder of our meditation tradition, Mahavira, because we're Jains. But if you're Buddhist, you might put on your dresser or your bureau or your wardrobe a little figurine, maybe gotten from the same shop, that's actually Shakyamuni, the Buddha. And that's really interesting to me. I don't know what it says, but it does kind of join these important figures, because people don't necessarily understand how old and venerable the tradition of meditation is. I used to teach a class at a meditation center. This would have been, 20 years ago. And this was right as the mindfulness movement was replacing whatever had come before. People would read things like the 3 Pillars of Zen, or they'd read, this was a popular one, What the Buddha Taught. This was a book that a lot of people had read, or Thich Nhat Hanh stuff. Back in the 90s and the early 2000s, if people came into my class and it was like they're just starting out, they knew what they were doing. They knew what kind of a thing they were engaged in. And I could say, all right, first thought, how old is Buddhism? Or how old is meditation? And people would raise their hand and they would say, I don't know, 3,000 years old, 1,500 years old. Well, it's got to be ancient. It's probably older than Christianity. And people would say things like this all the time. And then I might say, where does it come from? Everybody knew where it came from. 90% of people would say India. Some people might say China or Japan, which is fair. It doesn't come from there originally, but they may have trained in some meditation that did come from Japan or Korea or China. And then I would say, what tradition does meditation come from? And it was always, everybody in the room was either going to say Buddhism or Hinduism. They just knew that. But by 2010, 2015, that was no longer the case. This is when I started to do this diagnostic at the beginning of a class. I'd started to notice that I might give an opening lecture, like maybe we'd have a course teaching meditation, maybe it was going to go all summer or something like that, once a week. And I'd give a bunch of teachings, and then midway through, people would ask questions which could only be asked by someone who's really been just not knowing what was going on for the last several classes. Like they wouldn't understand. One person asked me in the middle of a seminar, that had been going on for quite a while. Why do you keep bringing up Buddha? Why will you keep bringing this up? Why are you bringing that into this? And he had no idea that because it belongs here. So I started doing a diagnostic where I would ask people, where does meditation come from? And I started to see about 2010 that the only people who would raise their hand with confidence were the old people. The young people would just do this. I don't know. Don't know. What tradition is it associated with? They might say yoga. It's associated with yoga. Fair enough. I mean, kind of. It kind of is. I have this right here, so I'm going to use this as a prop in a minute. And then I would ask, how old is it? No one would know. Maybe I already said that. They basically no longer had the preparation for meditation that I had gotten used to. What I learned over time is that one of the things that they didn't have because of that was they didn't have an understanding of the path. If you understand that meditation is a path, you kind of understand that you are learning something that if you connect to it, you're going to be practicing for the rest of your life. If you don't connect to it, you don't, whatever. But it isn't something that's going to yield a short-term result. It's something that you do as part of your life forever from now on. And the gold standard is to live a long, healthy life. And as you come to the end of your life, you increase your meditation, and your loved ones accommodate you. They accommodate you so that you can increase your meditation as you're coming to your final moments, and then, kind of live in the dream is that you die in meditation. And a number of my teachers did. They died in meditation. That was at the end of their life, though. When I was in graduate school, one of my teachers, she was a translator. She was a Tibetan translator, and she was hosting these two teachers who would come through the United States from Nepal. They're called the Kempo brothers. I think it was Kempo, Pema. Oh, I'm not going to remember. Boy, they were great, though. I'll remember it later. The Kempo brothers. They were these two Dzogchen masters. They were brothers. They had been born and raised in Tibet, and then they moved to Nepal, and they would travel around the world to various meditation centers, just encouraging people and giving awesome instruction in their tradition, which was Dzogchen. And one year, they came through Boulder, and they stayed with her, and she came into class one day, and she said, I have two house guests who are staying with me. At least I thought it was going to be two. It's actually three, because they're traveling with their uncle, and they just call him Uncle. And Uncle is there, and Uncle is very old, and Uncle is now in the process of preparing to die. Uncle wasn't unhealthy. He just knew that he's so old that surely he's getting ready to die. And he just decided, it's just like people who move into a retirement community as early as possible, or maybe they just decide, let's just move into the assisted care community sooner rather than later. And then we won't use the assisted care until we really need it, but then it'll be there for us. Uncle had decided, maybe he has 5 years left, but wouldn't it be great if he spent these 5 years just practicing meditation, in particular, the type of meditation that you do at the moment of death if you are awake enough to do it. It's called POA. And one of the things that you do is you shout the syllable, "Pei," again and again and again. And, this isn't something that, most Western meditators do, but a lot of them do it. So you're shouting this syllable to fragment the clinging of your mind stream, and then you rest in your Buddha nature. And then when the mind comes up again, pay, you shout pay again, your mind fragments, and you rest in your Buddha nature, and you're ready to die. And so she would come into class and she'd say, I'm a little distracted because I'm being woken up every night by one of my visitors who every 10 minutes or so is shouting pay because he might die. And I'd never heard about that before, but I started to think there's something very sensible about that, because that is not someone who's afraid. That's someone who's gearing up. They're viewing something tremendous that is getting ready to happen. They don't feel that they're losing the only good thing they ever could have. They don't feel that way at all. They feel that in this life they've had, they encountered the path. And the path helped them live a great life and prepared them for the final stage of life. And so at the final stage of life, they know what to do. I just thought that was very interesting. Anyway, the Buddha told his students that it is possible to attain complete awakening, Buddhahood. And he had, he wasn't shy about that. He sort of had to say, yeah, I've done it, but don't worry about that. Don't worship me. It's not, the big deal isn't that I have done this, because you can do it too. If there's any big deal about me, said he, it's that I have put it together into something that you can do, and that is called the path. The most important thing is the path. So what he did is he gave the path to his students, and he told them again and again, remember, it's not about me. Don't spend too much time mourning me. It's the path. Please don't pass along all of your favorite stories about the time that we all went to the stream together or the time we went out to get fish and chips. Don't tell everybody about that stuff. Tell them about the path. It doesn't have to be about the person who taught the path. You teach them the path. It's the path that will liberate them. So the path was a big thing, and it was an important thing already back then. It wasn't as if this was the first time anyone had ever talked about a path. In fact, at the time, this is the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is probably from about the same time as the Buddha. The Bhagavad Gita is a precious document to the Hindu, to the Vedanta tradition. The Bhagavad Gita, what does it outline? Well, it has teachings on the nature of reality, but one of the important things that it has is an articulation of how one lives their life to discover the nature of reality. So that's the path. This was already in place. The Bhagavad Gita is probably the most widely read text in India. Bhagavad Gita. A little while after that, quite a while after that actually, we started to see the development of what's called Raja Yoga. These days, yoga means something else to people. It means Hatha Yoga, which are the postures, the breathing and the stretching and the physical stuff. That is an extremely minor thing, and it's actually quite a recent thing that developed world of asanas. That's not particularly ancient. This is yoga in this sense means meditation. Yoga means joining yourself with your nature. And so we have the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which are a series of short teachings on how to meditate. And this is one of the earliest things that I learned, even before I was a Buddhist practitioner, is I learned the Yoga Sutras, and I still even have some of them memorized in Sanskrit, which is impressive to me, but maybe not to you. Yoga Chitvritti Nirodha. Yoga is the willful suppression of the modifications of the mind. So anyway, we had the Yoga Sutras, and then we also had, a little bit later, instructions on what modern meditators these days go for immediately, which is called the nature of mind. We had instructions on recognizing the nature of mind. That, which is, this is Advaita Vedanta or Kashmir Shaivism. It's in both of those. Those are not the same thing, but these are not Buddhist traditions, but they are the same essential techniques that are held in the Buddhist tradition. But what you don't get in some of these early surviving non-Buddhist traditions is you don't get a strong presentation of the path. Now, when I was first learning this stuff, I was fascinated with these types of texts. I didn't want to read anything Buddhist. I wanted to read this stuff because there is no path. It's just you recognize awareness and you become enlightened. So I started doing that. I started recognizing awareness and waiting. Like, I think it's going to happen. Oh, there's awareness again. Yeah, maybe that's it. Nope, I lost it. The techniques are very powerful, but what didn't come down with those techniques was the path that no doubt was part of these techniques in Kashmir or wherever they were taught. All of these traditions that are very powerful are powerful not on their own, but in the context of a path. And these days we have a lot of people, especially on YouTube, who are practicing these types of things without a path, and it's not doing much for them. It's called the non-dual movement, and all you have to do is type in non-dual in the YouTube search bar, and you will find all of the 28-year-old non-dual masters out there. The path, though, is important enough that I have a document here. This is one of the truly, truly great books that anyone who really wants to get into this stuff could purchase and put on their shelf to look impressive. It's very, very long. It was written by Dudjom Rinpoche, who's one of the great masters of the 20th century. And this is essentially just one long, and obviously you can see that it's long, one long document of the path. This is what a real meditation teacher, not someone like me, would understand. They would know this stuff cold. They would understand the path at that level. There's a great deal to discover about reality and to discover about ourselves, and there are many, many ways of doing that. And there are many ways because there are many types of people. There are many types of life situations, and not everybody is really suited to the same type of path. So there are paths that have been unfolded for people based on their condition, and they've been collected together, which is why this is a thick book. Now, if the meditation tradition were only a year old, it would probably just be a few pages. Just a few pages, that would be it. That would be the collected knowledge of the path. But because it's 2,500 years old, we've had a lot of time to observe how different people in different situations, of different capacities, of different motivations, can best enter into a path which will awaken them. So we have a lot of knowledge behind the path. We also have a lot of traditional things that have become standardized. So When the Buddha was starting out, the Buddha did not yet have the Buddhist path. The Buddha was learning whatever came before the Buddha. So what was the Buddha learning? Well, there was definitely a path. It was a path that we call, these days, we call it the 9 stages of shamatha, which elaborates into things beyond that, like the 4 meditative absorptions and so forth. This is a Buddhist book that talks about the path that the Buddha practiced before he was the Buddha. The practice of developing meditative stability and going into very refined states of consciousness. There was a path that the Buddha followed, that the Buddha's teachers followed. For most people, it took their entire lifetime. The Buddha was kind of a savant, so it didn't take him very long. And he mastered it very quickly, and then he innovated. And when he innovated, he used what had come before as a basis to do something that had never been done before, which is to turn the faculty of intelligence around on itself and look at itself, which, as we just talked about, later became an important tradition in the non-Buddhist parts of India also, turning awareness in on itself, recognizing the nature of awareness. Well, the Buddha did that. And then the Buddha created a way that people like us could do it. And what most people hear about is they hear about the path as this. The noble, I don't know if that's showing up, but the noble eightfold path. We hear about that. It's the noble eightfold path. Is that the path? Is the path the noble eightfold path? Well, if you were hanging out with the Buddha early on, and I mean very early on, like on his first tour, you would hear the Noble Eightfold Path, which is right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Those 8 things are what someone does to become awakened. And so the Noble Eightfold Path became a standard. Over the generations from there, though, a lot of refinements took place. The tradition wasn't changed exactly, but it was certainly enhanced. We had hundreds of years of meditation masters consolidating everything they understood against everything that the Buddha had taught. Right. Thank you, John. Yeah, I think that I am streaming at 1080. Maybe you're telling that to everyone else. If you want the best video quality, then go down in, probably it's here. It's maybe, let's see. I don't know if this reverses it or not. It's probably right there. Yeah, under the microphone, there's a little wheel, and you can click that wheel under this microphone on your screen. Anyway, I digress. The Noble Eightfold Path was a way of telling people how they needed to behave, what they needed to be doing in order for all of these remarkable transformations to take place. So they needed to develop right mindfulness, or right means correct, not incorrect. It means the type of mindfulness that does move one in the direction, because there could be types of mindfulness which kind of sidetrack one. You can be mindful of your thoughts in a way where you are paying attention to the content of your thought. That's not going to help you. That's not going to put you on the path to awakening. So, for example, this is just, I'm just pulling something out here. Being mindful of the arising and dissolving of thoughts, that's right mindfulness. Being mindful of what your thoughts are telling you, that's not right mindfulness. That would be wrong mindfulness. So the Noble Eightfold Path is a way of telling you, here are all the things, these 8 things have to be consolidated in your being so that you can, and I should just put that up just in case somebody watches the replay. Here they are. There are the Noble Eightfold Path. Yes, sir. If you do all of those things, you're right as rain, and Bob's your uncle. But you know, the thing about that is it didn't talk about the path. I mean, there's this other element of the path of, well, what's going to happen to me on this path? Isn't there something like, can't we read ahead and see what the path looks like if I do it? Because I get it. I have to do these 8 things. I have to have right speech and right intention, right mindfulness, right concentration, all that. I get it. But what will happen? Isn't that part of the path? Well, yeah, that is part of the path. Later on, we had what was called the rise of the Bodhisattva path. And the Bodhisattva path is so extensive and so mind-bogglingly vast that it can be a little awe-inspiring even to approach it. But the way the journey unfolds from the first day you decide, I think I want to meditate, until the day where you become a Buddha is called the 5 paths, the 5 paths of the Mahayana. And the 5 paths of the Mahayana is taught in books like Gampopa's Jewel, Ornament of Liberation. And what this does is it talks about how essentially you take the Eightfold Path as your conduct and your guidepost of what type of person you need to be. Whoa, boy. I'm going to back up here a little bit, get out of the sun. And then the 5 paths describe what is happening to you by doing that. So we have what's called the path of gathering all of the virtuous qualities, or the path of accumulation is what that's often called, suklam. The path of accumulation is where you learn how to direct your mindfulness at the body, how to direct your mindfulness at feelings, how to direct your mindfulness back at awareness, how to direct your mindfulness to the impermanence of thoughts that are arising. Those things that you do are part of the early stage of the path. They're not part of the later stage of the path. So if we have 5 paths, and path number 1 is day number 1, and path number 5 is you becoming a Buddha, then the development of right mindfulness, that's going to take place here on the first path, the first of the 5 paths. So most of what we need, I mean, we can be scholars and we can study all of the advanced paths, the 5 paths. We mostly just need the first path. We need to really understand what to do, how to bring ourselves into meditative stability, how to begin to have insight, and so forth. And so that's another one of the path models that can be very useful. In the Finding Ground approach, we use a combination of the Eightfold Path, which are the things that we develop within ourselves, and then the 5 paths, which is the actual what to do when. So the Eightfold Path is what we do, and the 5 paths approach is what happens and when because of doing those things. Then, a little bit after the 5 paths model happened, we had a number of amazing meditation masters who began to formulate meditation instruction based just on the experience of awareness turning back on itself. So in the Hindu tradition, we have what's called the doctrine of recognition. The Pratyabhijna Hridayam was a secret teaching in how to do that. That's what this text is, the Pratyabhijna. That's the heart of recognition. Hridayam, Pratyabhijna Hridayam. So it's a method for looking back and stabilizing that. But it is no longer taught, or at least it isn't easily taught, in a container or a context that supports you while you're doing it. To me, at least, there are other people who are still trying to do this. It's kind of a tradition that didn't survive. It certainly didn't survive like the Buddhist tradition. I'll just show you that there is this book right here, which is very thick, which is just an expanded version of this small one, which is by a modern teacher, Christopher Wallace, who's on YouTube, by the way, who teaches this as a path. So for those who are very interested in that, you might want to check him out. But before you do, you might want to take a look at the path of turning the mind back on itself, because that path is called Mahamudra. And it is one of the most completely supported meditation paths in the world today. Its path model is called the 4 yogas of Mahamudra. There's that word again, the 4 yogas of Mahamudra. This isn't just a technique. There is a technique in it. There are many techniques within it. I mean, this is a pretty, this is simply an articulation of all of the subtleties of this one method. Like when I do this and I kind of indicate the mind turning back on itself, well, you might think, oh, okay, the mind, turn it back on itself. Gotcha, Roger, I'll do that. Thanks. Good luck. If it were just that easy, there wouldn't be a book like this. And this is a short version. I have longer versions of this. The 4 yogas of Mahamudra talk to you about, well, what's it like learning to do this? What kind of person do I have to be in order to do this and have it be stable? Does it have to be stable, or can it just be fleeting? Because anybody can do it fleeting. That's kind of what Eckhart Tolle teaches. But is that enough? Well, this tradition will say it's a good start, but is it enough? No, it's not enough. That's why we use the word yoga. You got to join it. You have to join awareness to its own recognition, and then it unfolds through 4 stages. That first stage is learning to do that. The 4th stage is you became a Buddha. You became a Buddha by doing it. So there's a path in every legitimate meditation system. There is the supporting context, and there's also a map of how it happens and what it's like when it happens and what to look for to make sure it's happening and what to look for that might indicate that you've taken a sidetrack. So paths are the guardrails that keep us going, because the stakes are very high in meditation, and the price we pay for the reward is time. We pay time, and we only have so much time, so we want to make sure that we're using our time well. That's why we have a path. And how do we get a path? Through the community of practitioners who share the path with us. So having colleagues who practice is great. If possible, having a teacher which can teach the path is really, that's the best way. That's a new concept to a lot of people who want to meditate. They don't realize that that's how it's done. They think it's done by getting an instruction and just kind of having at it. But what happens there is not the same thing as the unfolding of experience to a result. I'm 5 minutes over. Usually I'm terrible at ending on time when I don't have anything in particular to do. But I'm going to end here. So I'm also going to, if there are no questions in the comments section, which is fine. We'll be doing this again And if you have questions, you can ask them. But if you do have a question and you drop it in the next few seconds, I'll respond to it. I'd love to. These live streams, as far as I know, are put up on YouTube automatically. So if you came in late and you're kind of wondering if the beginning was any good, you can watch the replay when it's up. It'll probably be up tomorrow, or I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Laura, you're very welcome. The Magical Mystery Tour of the Paths. Oh, I should say, because Laura, you've been to hundreds and thousands of seconds of Finding Ground retreats. In Finding Ground, we're using all of these. All of these. We have the Noble Eightfold Path, which we're going to be talking a lot about in our academy, which starts on Saturday. And then we're also doing the 4 Yogas of Mahamudra. And we're also, because everybody who practices is on the 5 paths, and we're going to be talking about that. So for those of you who are not planning yet to come to our summer academy, where we'll go into all of this, I just wanted to say that there is a link in the description that if you would like to register for our 14-day academy, which begins it begins the 28th, I think. I think it's Saturday. There's a discount code, $100 off registration. If you would like to do this, you're more than welcome to do it. Starts Sunday. Thank you, April. It's a 14-day academy that isn't all day. It's designed to fit into your week. And if you would like to do it, you're very welcome to join us. We would love to have you. There's a discount code here. Sorry, the 29th. April, are those two different? When does it start? I think it's in the description, actually. It starts soon, this weekend, and it will give you a path. I can promise you that. So everybody, thank you so much for coming to our very first live stream. I'm excited to keep this going. In the future, what I'll probably do is I'll announce what the topic is going to be. And if the topic is just going to be answering your questions, then that's what it will be called. But we have to have a way of collecting questions in order to do that. So I think, Sunday the 29th, I think that's it for tonight. I think it's dinner time. I have certainly enjoyed our time together, everybody. I'll see you soon. I'll see you either in the retreat or I'll see you here next time. And one of these days we'll get it set up so that if you want to be on part of this call where I can see you and you can see me, well, you can see me now, but I can't see you. We're going to set that up too. I just have to figure out how. So goodbye, everybody. I wish you the very best. Happy summer, and we'll see you soon.